Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is our 13th conversation with the Constitution. And as you all know, today is Constitution Day. Constitution was signed on this day in 1787, so a little ways back there. And it's kind of interesting that a lot of Americans aren't even aware that today's Constitution Day. But at any rate, this is, I hope, will be a fun event. Many of you have been here before already, but I'll just lay it out real quick in terms of how we're doing it. We're in a minute going to have Christopher Phillips do the moderation for the event, and he'll start off with an initial question on the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, which is what we're focusing on today. If you don't have a copy of the Constitution, we have them on the tables, and feel free to take one if you need one. Of course, you can also get on your phone and look it up as well. But so Chris will ask the opening, and then we'll go to seminar. Then we'll go to seminars at your table. Am I holding it too close? Okay. We'll go to seminars at your tables for about half an hour or so, a little bit longer maybe, and then Chris will come back up and he'll kind of interview the tables, see what you talk about your tables, and then we'll finish up by 7:30 sharp. So with that said, I'm happy to introduce Suk Kaur, the councilman for District 1. We're in District 1 currently. And you want to come on up, Suk?
I was told to actually this way for the camera. Okay, good evening. It's so nice to be here with you all. Happy you guys in downtown in District 1. Most of you know that do I have to? Yeah, most of you may know that my background is in public education, so always thinking about how do we make sure our young ones, and I see we have some students from Great Hearts here, how do we make sure that all of our students get access to high quality schools, even as we support them in the city level. And so that's always been something I'm really passionate about. Obviously, I'm in an elected office, so this conversation is very important to us in terms of understanding where we sit and how we can still support locally, even amidst all of the stuff that's going on nationally. But I hope you guys have a wonderful conversation about the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Suk. Okay, next, Charles, you want to come up? Charles Maciate has worked with me over the years on this event, and he's here this evening to help with some introductions.
Hello, sorry. Still getting used to my voice. My name is Charles Maciate. I'm a partner with Martin Capital Advisors here in town. I also am a former teacher at Great Hearts Monte Vista. I was teaching for the last 5 years, the Humane Letters, which is the Socratic seminar. And one of the things, just to echo a little bit from Dr. Kaur, is that the passion for education is certainly here. And from our side of things, the great books, right? The texts that are absolutely foundational to the Western world, and maybe not just the Western world, but the Eastern world as well, and Eastern texts, Western texts, great books. And to echo something that Paul had mentioned a moment ago, a lot of folks forget that that the Constitution itself is a great text. It's part of the canon of the West, and it's a very important document. And as we prep for the 250th year, celebrating America's founding, it's even that much more sort of crucial to engage in that kind of discourse, thinking about the rights that this document has granted to us, and sort of how to live together in society based on the words in this document. So super excited to be here with you. And I will say that if you're fortunate enough to have a Great Hearts student at your table, don't be shy and put back. I guess I have too much aura or something. I'm destroying the AV. But yeah, please push back and know that they're some of the top students at Great Hearts, and they know how to have a conversation. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Vanessa Beasley up, and she's just a champion here, president of Trinity University, the first female president of Trinity University. That's right. In July 2022, following roles as a faculty member, administrator, and vice provost at Vanderbilt. She began her academic career in 1988 at T. Austin, Hookham, earning Oh, well, okay. So here we go. Dr. Beasley has taught at A&M, SMU, University of Georgia, earning widespread recognition for teaching and mentorship, including Vanderbilt's Thomas Jefferson Award and a National Communication Association Membership Award. She currently serves as president of the Rhetoric Society of America. Her research focuses on U.S. political rhetoric, which is something that's super apropos, particularly presidential rhetoric and media, with notable works including You, the People, and Who Belongs in America. She's also frequently quoted by media outlets like Time and Newsweek. So please.
Thank you. Brief. I just want to stand in awe and admiration. Constitution Day is one of my favorite days of the year. Back, I used to teach some of the debates and speeches from the Constitutional Convention, and really inviting students to the arguments that took place for them to come up with this document, right? And how at one point Benjamin Franklin had to say, I think it's good enough. And of course, having the sentiment that it will be never a perfect union unless we stop. We have to keep working on it, right? An ever more perfect union, as they say. So very honored to be with you tonight. Very incredibly grateful that this has been happening for 13 years in our community. And the last thing I'll say is, at Trinity, we've been working hard the last few years to really focus on the conversation part. Have lost the art of listening. Have lost the art of the you believe. In fact, it's that you're going to have these round tables and this Socratic dialogue. If you have one of these great, because I've just them and they're amazing. But better off, maybe you can listen to them. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. Have a wonderful evening. And yeah, again, let's hear it for the Constitution. Yeah.
Now is Elizabeth Avalar. This microphone is a challenge. At any rate, Elizabeth Avalar will introduce our moderator for the day, Christopher Phillips, and then we'll get started with the seminars. Chris will then talk a little bit about the Fourth and Fifth Amendments and ask an opening question. And then we'll do the seminars at the table, and we'll shoot to finish the seminars like around 7, and then Chris will engage the whole group here with a Q&A about what you discussed at your tables, and we'll wrap up at 7:30. And in the meantime, of course, feel free to go over and grab some more food or something as you go along here. And we'll also have a vote there when we finish as well.
1, 2, 3.
Get something. So here's Elizabeth.
Thank you much for being. Ben, you decided to be here. And please make sure that you check in, give us your email, because that way next year we can invite you and you will be updated on all things, a conversation with the Constitution. So thank you again for being here. Our opening question this evening will be posted by Dr. Christopher Phillips. Dr. Phillips is a philosopher, best-selling author and founder of initiatives like Socrates Cafe and Democracy Cafe, which bring people together around the world to ask life's biggest questions and discover common ground. He also helped start a conversation with the Constitution more than 13 years ago and has graciously moderated ever since. Dr. Phillips has served as a fellow at Harvard and at the University of Pennsylvania, and his work has inspired thousands of ongoing discussions, groups globally. And as Dr. Cornel West, he has said that Dr. Phillips is the greatest living embodiment of the Socratic spirit. Outside of his public work, he is a devoted husband and father of 2 daughters, a role he deeply treasures as deeply as his life and philosophy. And his wife is actually in Zoom. She is hosting our breakout session. So there, give a shout out to Ceci. She's out there out of Florida. Thank you so much for being here. And so please join me in welcoming Dr. Christopher Phillips.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. How are you? Can you believe it's our 13th year, Paul? You can, I can't. See, Paul is like, I do when. Can we first just give a really warm round of applause to some of the unsung heroes, Elizabeth Avalar in particular, but also Charles Massiat and Paul Martin himself. Liz, thank you for all you do. Thank you so much. And my wife, Ceci, I get all the glory, but Ceci is really the spirit behind everything. Ceci, thank you so much, Dan. Big round of applause. Come on, give it up. And my dear friend who came all the way from the Twin Cities, Dennis Dienst, who's been there through thick and thin, as has Paul. And I'm just so grateful that Dennis flew all the way here to be part of this. Thank you, my brother. And my friend Kelly Ransom. Where's Kelly? Yeah, and Kelly, and now I'm meeting Armin. I'll be back on December 9th for a gathering at the World Affairs Council. So I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you then as well. These are interesting times to be alive. And can we all agree on that? There have been spiraling acts of what I would call political violence that have been taking place. And I don't just mean physical acts, but people who feel afraid even that they shouldn't say anything or there'll be consequences. And it's ascending ever more out of control. And some of the most, as we learn in a play of Shakespeare's like Hamlet, some of the most personal, intimate acts can also be deeply embedded in political things as well. It certainly led to the rottenness pervasively in Denmark. And Paul has really made September 17th so special for me. It was just a week before when my book, Constitution Cafe, Jefferson's Brew for True Revolution came out. And I came and spoke at the program that Charles now runs called the Gemini Inc. It's called a Breakthrough Thinkers series, and I met Paul there. And this event on September 17th gets me through this day because this is the 14th anniversary. I hate to use that word because that sounds celebratory, but of the tragically unexpected and still mysterious death of my father. And luckily I was able to get an advanced copy of this book in his hands. And my dad's Greek, and I wrote all my previous books, Socrates Cafe and 6 Questions of Socrates, were all about Greek, celebrating Hellenic heritage. My dad liked this book the best. And we talked about it quite a bit, and I was ever so grateful that several months before his passing, on September 17th, 2011, we got to talk deeply, among many, many other things, about constitutional matters and how I came to write this book. I'm wondering if you would mind if we took about 30 seconds of silence and really thought about all those who have been victimized, left, right, unable to label politically, but all those whose voices in one way or another have been silent. Can we do that just for a few seconds, please? Thank you so much. I think a lot of us are in mourning for our democracy, that we've lost that ability to engage one another thoughtfully, respectfully, especially as we disagree. And what I love about this, this is really Paul's brainchild. Constitution Cafe is certainly kindred to what Paul came out with, but this ability to seek out others and invite them to public places and spaces so we can share and celebrate, at least to certain degrees, a wide range of different ways of seeing the world is something that we used to really prize and seems to have gone by the wayside. But I always leave these gatherings feeling great hope and heart for our possibilities as Americans, as actual aspiring and people who sometimes come from other nations as well. I have dual U.S. Greek citizenship, and my grandparents came through Ellis Island 102 years ago, and fascists took over their island. And so whenever we see pernicious patterns of people being afraid, of a culture of silence, people looking the other way, these are the times. And it's kind of interesting to note that patterns in history do repeat themselves. So far, all the greatest open societies have had moments of ascent, moments of stasis, and then irreversible decline. And by the time it reaches that period, it can be too late. Look at what happened to Socrates. He was killed in a democracy. And my flagship initiative still is Socrates Cafe after all these years. Gylan, he thought I would be about 102 years old because he's known of Socrates Cafe, which I began in 1996. And there's a real uptick in inquiries about our palette of initiatives. If you go to democracycafe.org, Socrates Cafe certainly is the flagship one, but Constitution Cafe and Conversation with the Constitution are very much kindred and enlaced with those as well. And so today, we are going to look at, we've never done this before. We're looking at two amendments at the same time. We're looking at the Fourth and the Fifth Amendments. And so these amendments sprang from the fact that the framers of our Constitution, there was a worry that there were still possibilities of sort of people exercising kind of monarchical, authoritarian abilities over people to truly be free. And so in the Fourth Amendment, this ability to not have well, here's the thing. You're supposed to be in America, you're supposed to be the king of your home. And so all of a sudden, there were lots of arrests, searches, and seizures that were pretty indiscriminate. And it reminded our original revolutionaries of the fact that there were still vestiges of monarchical powers that could be exercised in pernicious ways in our government. And then when you lump that with the Fifth Amendment, which is about, for the Fourth Amendment, about having probable cause before you do searches and seizures and issue warrants. And then the Fifth Amendment is all about having this thing called due process, where you, whether you're a U.S. citizen or you just happen to be on U.S. soil, all persons on U.S. soil would be able to be afforded this wonderful due process. So with the combination of probable cause and due process, you knew that the Constitution had your back. And so there have been some things ongoing of late that have been of some concern to Americans across the political spectrum. A lot of folks who, whether here or from elsewhere, have been on the receiving end of what they would consider, and their lawyers would consider, unwarranted searches and seizures, and including invasions of homes without probable cause. That's been more like of the fabricated variety, and that they've been completely denied due process. Now, when we think about these two things together, we typically think about, well, this is mostly applicable to those who are here maybe in an undocumented capacity. But it's not so. It is a big element of it, to be sure. But there's also, I don't know if you've heard or read about these things, there's also a lot of phone lines for informants these days, especially in the federal government. If you are teaching something that is considered antithetical to certain views, if you say in the State Department, for instance, anything that smacks of an anti-Christian bias, as they put it in their directive, if you dare to even, all the diversity DEI program has been completely eliminated, but there's still federal employees who believe in it in spirit. But if you express that belief or support of it, there are now lines that, phone lines, they call them snitch lines, that people call, and you can get in hot water really quickly without any due process of any kind. Somebody who may just have a grudge against you can anonymously call one of these informant lines, and you can get suspended, you can get demoted, and you can get the boot. And you might never even know who your accuser was. That's where things are right now. It's a little bit chilly, regardless of your political beliefs. It's we're circumventing our supposedly sacrosanct Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. And I would think and hope that everybody of any political persuasion might be concerned and alarmed about that. Because what happens to one side right now might happen to the other. Did anybody here live through, at any part, through the Red Scare, one or two? Anybody? What was called the Red Scare in the United States? You did? Was it not a very great time? Was it a little? It was. Yeah, so people are afraid to speak. There's almost a culture of silence because of fear sometimes, because they might get earmarked or reported to something. And so those patterns are kind of repeating themselves today. And so I thought for a question, it's a little bit edgier than usual, but for our opening question to engage in, and don't worry about right or wrong, just worry about, think long and hard about getting your view across, and then making sure everybody else at your table has ample opportunity to speak as well. Sometimes we all win in these days of rampant polarization just by hearing one another out, especially if we don't agree with their point of view. And just finding out what people think and why they think what they think. And let's focus on that habit today. And so my question to you today, and you can challenge the assumption of the question, of course, is how can we, the people, safeguard our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights? That's my question. How can we, the people, safeguard our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights? All right, I'm going to come join somebody at a table, and you guys have at it.
Thanks, Chris. We'll get started now with the seminars. And hopefully you all have a copy of the Constitution. If not, there are a few extra ones around the tables here and there if you need to grab one. So the focus will be on the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. Try to stay focused on that. You don't have to by any means, but that's what we're trying to comprehend today. And keep in mind that usually at the end of most seminars, you end up with more questions than answers, but that's kind of the way it goes. And also, if at some point there's a silence at your table, it's fine. It just means people are thinking. So, just give it a minute. But and then we'll wrap up in about half an hour, and then Chris will engage the tables with what you discussed at your tables. So let's get going.
Also going to be people participating on Zoom. Sassy, you'll be moderating that, right?
Yes, I'm on it.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so the idea maybe it was to do breakout rooms, but because there's just a few of us, Gylon, maybe you want to mute me over there so they don't hear us chatting here. So since there's just a few of us, we can have that same question, and just feel free to open your microphones. I'm gonna remove the spotlight here so that we can have, we can have a more intimate conversation since there's 5 of us, really. Jeff had to leave. He said his internet was very unstable. So, do we need, does anybody have the Fourth and Fifth Amendment? Do you want me to share it on the screen so that you can read it? Or does anybody have it handy that wants to read it? Just open your microphones and how do you prefer to do it?
So Renee Housen, can you hear us?
Yes.
In San Antonio, Texas. We didn't say that originally. There's Edward, Island, and Sylvia, and we lost Jeff. Maybe?
Yes, we lost Jeff.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I have it here if you want me to read the Fourth Amendment.
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, whoops. Fourth Amendment. It protects people against government overreach and searches and seizures. That's not the actual wording. Where did it show
That's
that?
key principles. Might be above there or below there.
It was here, but it's not here. Well, the key principles
Repeats.
the protection from unreasonable.
Just a minute. Oh, it's the same thing.
The key points are that the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Police need a warrant issued by a judge that has to have a probable cause for that warrant to be granted. They must be specific about the place to be searched and items or people to be seized. People. Evidence gathered illegally can often be thrown out in court. That's the fourth, the key principle.
Okay. Thank you so much. Somebody just joined us. So, so we just finished reading the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, which are
Just the fourth, not the fifth.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that was the fourth. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to read the fifth? Does anybody have it there handy? And for those who are joining us, Edward, Sylvia, Joel, if you want to open your camera so that we can have the conversation, that will be great. Thank you.
So do I need to keep that up? I'm doing other things and I didn't really want to share my video for the space I was in, but
Okay.
is that critical to show my camera now that you saw my face? Hi.
Hi. Well, no, if you don't feel comfortable, it's okay. It's just good to know that there's a person behind the screen, right?
It's a real person. I'm not a troll.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So, Edward, do you have the Fifth Amendment handy? Would you like to read it? You have to open your microphone.
I'm sorry, I was looking for one up here on my bookshelf and I couldn't find it. I thought I had one, but no, I don't seem to have it handy. The Fifth Amendment. I know that it generally allows you to not answer questions at court. I think when people in court and they take the Fifth Amendment, it protects them from having to answer questions that might be
Self-incriminating.
Incriminating, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Exact wording of the Fifth Amendment is, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in times of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Thank you so much. So what do you think, who would like to tell us what you think about how do we safeguard our Fourth and Fifth Amendments? How can we do that?
Oh, God.
Well, I mean, I would presume that you need to be aware of any kind of occurrences that are reported in the news and a reliable source of media that would expose this kind of abuse of those two amendments, and be aware of whether they're lawful or not per these two amendments. And that's being aware of current events in the news from reliable and trusted sources in the media, because I think, you know, we all know that every source is going to have its viewpoint, how to present it, how they have the light and context in which they present in the event any one of these two amendments have been abused, or whether they believe it's justified. And then from there, I guess you have to more or less follow how that particular alleging whether it's lawful or not per the Constitution is being upheld by certain people within the courts or within legislative bodies, the people that we vote for, so that you can understand their viewpoints and how they either defend it or not.
That was very eloquent. Thank you so much. Yes. Joel, do you want to open your microphone? Or does anybody would like to jump in, share something else?
The way Dory Tina is the one who's giving me all the advice. She's our little dog, our Yorkie poo. She's right here, whispering in our ears.
Oh.
Okay, she just left the scene.
Oh.
I think that one example of what I would consider illegal search and seizure was when the FBI took apart the underwear drawers of Melania Trump at Mar-a-Lago. I think that was a totally fabricated situation by government officials. Obviously, it was thrown out later in court because they actually added things to the items that were quote unquote found and rearranged them to create a media blitz against Trump. Now, whether you like Trump or not, that was an invasion of his privacy, and they were searching for whatever they could find, not specific items. So I think that was the government doing an unconstitutional act.
So was there there was not some like what is that document, like the document that shows that they have the right to do that, the search? They didn't have that.
That would be granted by a judge that's the specific part of the Fourth Amendment for search and seizure.
Whether there was a warrant or not, I don't think it would specify that they needed to go through a woman's drawers
Yeah.
to try to find something that they could use against the former president at that time.
And also, the motivation for why the founding fathers included this in the Fourth Amendment is exactly why we think it was done, and it was politically motivated. That those searches that were done at that time were abusive, invasive, and politically motivated.
And they were non-specific. The English government would write a writ, and it would let them go into anyone's home for a treasure hunt. They wouldn't be specific about what they were supposed to find. And I think that was shown in the raid at Mar-a-Lago. Harassment, yeah.
Those were called general warrants, and
Thank
they were actually listed in the Declaration of Independence as an issue. And yes, they were used against the colonists first in Boston and in other places. But they could just go into your home and search, or your business and search for anything we wanted to. I think one of the first people this happened to was John Hancock, where they searched and seized his ship Liberty, you know, and they used the general warrants to do that.
Mhm.
They were actually called writs of assistance by the Brits.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And it mattered to the founders because, quote, they wanted to ensure the new federal government could not harass citizens or seize property without strong legal justification.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, so I totally agree that it doesn't matter what your political views are, that we need to protect those amendments, right? No matter who they're coming from, or what they're happening right now, or they happened a few years ago. How do we go about protecting those as citizens? You mentioned making sure that whatever source they're coming from, that they're legitimate.
I think you vote in the people who go along with our beliefs. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
And you vote out the people who take those powers for personal gain.
Mm-hmm.
Fight fascism.
Yeah.
One of the things we've been doing up here in Massachusetts, I've been noticing in libraries and in some of the cafes, they've have these little red cards printed up with our rights on them and what to say if we're stopped, or what to say if, you know, they want to do a search and seizure and so forth. It's not as good as reading the Constitution, but it gives us a brief synopsis of what we can say if we're in that situation at the time.
Yes,
I think a well-educated populace is one of the best answers to that.
absolutely. Yes,
That's right.
and that is very, very, I will say, very Massachusetts-like, you know, to have
Yes.
the cards now, but it's also on Instagram, right? For the rest of the world. Just like different ways of what is it that you can do, how we can expose it, as you were saying, on media, and just pointing it out, right? Doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with whoever is being searched or arrested, but that to know that you know, there are laws, right? Just like the First Amendment, just the Fourth and Fifth Amendment are talking about that. But the First Amendment also says that the executive power shouldn't be changing legislation, right? Is not it, that is for Congress.
I think one suggestion might be to publish and published specifically the Constitution in very simple form for all media outlets and reporters, announcers, and personalities, and have them maybe for the first time.
Yeah.
That's a snide comment, but it's real.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the media is so powerful. They have no idea of what they're doing about 90% of the time, or so it seems.
Every 4th of July, the Boston Globe reprints the Declaration of Independence on its editorial page. That's on the 4th of July each year. We reprint the Declaration of Independence. It would be nice, as this is Constitution Day, if they would do the same thing for the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
But
That
it's
would be-
more.
You're right.
It's more than that. Texas has stopped teaching government classes, and I think to some extent U.S. history. They're teaching to a test that tests their educated literacy, I guess. And this was a long process of successive reforms, and now they don't teach government, and I'm not sure they teach history anymore. And so a lot of people where I am in Texas don't seem to know where we came from. And so for them, it's really easy to say, well, I like the person in charge right now, so he should get to pick everything. And they just, basically turn it, devolve everything into a fiefdom, kingdom. So, and then it has to do with education.
Where are you in Texas?
Dallas area.
And we're
Yeah.
San Antonio.
We're San Antonio.
I think one of the things, if they're not teaching history within the public education system, I don't know if I love reading David McCullough. I think that he has some very interesting books that if they use those as ways as let's read this book, and you can get education on historical facts from the United States and have it be entertaining, and that way you can actually engage younger people, because then he's an easy read. He's very good and very fluent, I think, with research that he's done, and then taken that and put it into a format that is enjoyable to read about history, particularly about the United States and the Founding Fathers. And that's one way within the public education system to ensure that there's a knowledge base at the younger level, and then taking it forward as a legacy to the future generations. I mean, because, I think history is a very interesting topic, but when you're younger, you really don't understand the relevance. When you're 14, 15, 16, if you can put it in a format where it's interesting to read, and you make the people that are these historical figures live people with all the facts and the experiences they were having at that time within context, then the teacher can bring them alive and make it interesting.
Right.
And so I think that's one way of ensuring that these things that the Founding Fathers put into writing that we run our country by, and that our legislative bodies, as well as the judicial and the executive houses and branches, work, and why that balance of power was put there. So that's one way. I appreciate what you said about the education issue.
Hillsdale seems to do a pretty good job of trying to get the word out about the Constitution.
Yeah, they're good. Hillsdale College, y'all read any of their stuff. Is great. The thing I don't like about them is that they say all these courses are free, sign up, and then
they're not.
Claim you with all the well, where's your contribution? Like, what, really?
Yeah, I'm thinking about graphic novels.
Yeah.
Like when you talked about the historical books by David McCullough, I was thinking, yeah, that would be great. Like if we can do something kind of graphic literature where children or young adults can relate in a in a modern way? Kind of
Our
like, how
neighbor-
would that look today?
Our neighbor in Florida did exactly that for 7 and 8 year olds. 7,
Really?
8, 9. Yeah.
Where in
It's a
Florida?
We were in Wellington. We live in Wellington, Florida as well.
But
Yeah.
she did a graphic novel about a 1/4 inch thick that was instructional about the Constitution and all the amendments.
And she launched it on the 4th of July, not this summer, but summer 2022. And she wanted to be at the grassroots, thinking to be in the elementary schools as opposed to like middle and high school. She really wanted to start them out
Younger.
young. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But she did exactly that. It was a sort of a silly graphic novel for a much younger person. But we have used that with our grandchildren.
Yeah. We have a 6 and soon to be 8-year-old grandson. And the sad thing about public education is we were just with a good friend of ours who was a kindergarten teacher for many, many years. And our daughter-in-law and son have decided to do a hybrid homeschooling program where the kids go to school Tuesdays and Thursdays and they homeschool Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I asked her, well, what do you think about that? Because we sort of had a little bit of a stance of, oh gosh, the homeschool thing. We, either send them to private school Monday through Friday or, make sure they're at a good public school. And I asked her, and she was in public education for years, and she said, I think homeschool is the way to go. She said, our public education system is terrible. And that's a person who was in it for years. She retired about,
5 or 6
years ago. But she's like, the public education system is terrible.
Kaput.
It's really sad because I think kids need the interaction or benefit from the interaction with other students, assuming it's a positive interaction.
Mhm.
Not,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't like Hillsdale, there are some things on YouTube. You could actually get some lectures on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights by teachers or professors sometimes on YouTube delivering lectures like that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there available for people that want to educate themselves on the subject. You know, you just kind of have to sift through and make your own judgment about what's good and what's not. It's
Yeah.
kind of a jungle out there.
And now, I mean, with, artificial intelligence, you can Google most anything. What I'm wondering about, how do we do this mainstream? How do we get people interested in it, like that they know how important it is for their day-to-day living? Because we are being ruled by the Constitution, right? And what happens when this document is looked over by our own government, right? And so how do we get, I think, so if we go back to the original question, which is, how do we safeguard the Fourth and Fifth Amendment? I think, some of the ideas have been, well, first, we should make people aware of those rights, right? And empower them, I would say. It doesn't matter, again, if we're a country made out of diverse people with diverse views, which makes the world more colorful, right? But as long as there's respect for one another, and that would be one of the ways to do it, right? Like to say, to look at our humanity before we look at our about what separates us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing to consider in today is the fact that the media is very powerful in educating people.
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to be incredibly important in educating people. The many of the AIs we find you be important in the future to be able to train AIs to be able to look for constitutional ways of living, let me call it that, rather than Reddit and other particular leaned methods of dispersing information.
Yeah.
Because AI is going to be is the thing that people are going to go to now for information rather than the library.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a voice that is written for AI agents that promotes constitutional behavior, that is going to be very powerful in the next 5 years. Because people aren't going to look at Google anymore. They're going to go to their chat bot and ask about the Constitution just exactly like we just did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all the more reason why we need to know about it first, because I don't trust AI very much. I use Microsoft Copilot a lot, and for just this, that, and the other thing, and a lot of it for editing stuff I've written, and I've come across mistakes that Microsoft Copilot has made mistakes on.
Yeah, it will
So
give you the wrong answer on things.
it'll give you the wrong
or a
answer.
highly colored answer.
Absolutely, and we still need to know about it. You know,
Yeah,
we need to know about the Constitution so we can catch AI in these kind of mistakes.
we
I don't want to be dependent on that.
we the generation now and forward is going to depend on AI to tell it what's truthful and usable
Good luck with that.
and important. Well, but it that's what we've got to do is create good luck somehow for the dispersion of information effectively to AI agents so that they will go find those things which we would have them find, not the things which our adversaries would have them find.
Exactly.
And remember that AI doesn't just search in the United States, it searches the world. So there are a lot of people who aren't very friendly to us out there generating LLMs or large language models that will be accessed by AI agents. That's a today discussion. It's not a yesterday discussion.
Yeah, but that's what the younger generation.
That's what's going to happen.
For their research.
I mean, I don't use Google anymore.
Yeah.
I use chat. And I know because I have gone down biased answers before. I asked it certain specific questions about certain individuals in the government, and it will give you someone else's opinion of those individuals in the government.
Isn't that what you were saying by colored? You were saying the colored kind of reply that you get from AI is what you're considering.
Yeah, and what it will do is it will glorify one candidate, and it will say, "Well, I can't find anything else about the other candidate." So you got to watch who. At LLM, let me put it that way. So controlling LLMs is going to be real important to our constitutional rights and abilities. And back then they used a pen and they used a printing press, and today we use the telephone and the computer. So we're going to have to, forget about the English cursive writing and figure it out.
Wow. So much to think about.
That's one narrow and of what I
Well,
think
it's
today's learning is about. Because it's going to be AI. It's not going to be anything else.
Mhm.
and the bad thing about AI is that it conditions you to just ask a question and then get an answer collected, information collected, and then spoon fed to you. And I don't know that I'm not comfortable about where it is in the development of critical thinking in people.
Yeah.
And in Texas, I don't think they really want to teach critical thinking. It doesn't fit in with putting the biblical stuff in schools and all this other stuff. They don't want people to think in these public schools down here.
They've been having a
It's really
terrible
bad.
time with AI and colleges and universities now. They're trying to get kids to not use it for their
Yeah.
research.
It's not a learning.
I remember back when I was in school, we weren't supposed to use the Britannica for that. Remember?
Are
And
you
it was
serious?
we weren't allowed to use Britannica for research papers. Now we could use it for, going over and learning about the stuff in general. We just weren't allowed to use it in our actual reports,
Yeah,
to cite it or anything.
in a
But yeah,
research
we could
paper, I
use
could
it to
see.
do some general research, but we weren't allowed to use it. We weren't allowed to depend on it. Let me put it that way.
Well, you're
But
annotated.
kids are having their AI systems do their papers for them, and then I've heard the flip flop of that. The reverse of that is students being concerned that their professors are depending on it and using it to draw up their lectures for them.
Yeah.
So
And
it goes
probably-
two ways.
One of the things about the younger generation, how do we protect these Bill of Rights amendments and what they're for is for them to understand what it's like to not have these Bill of Rights in another country. And I think that the entitlement that a lot of younger people here feel that they have in living in this country and the freedom that they have is so they just don't understand because they can't really compare it to an experience somewhere else. I can't say that for all of them, right? But you can't really know what you've got unless you've experienced something that's not as good as this system somewhere else. And I think that the younger people that we have here take so many things for granted. And I mean, actually, our kids included, but our kids have been and around the world to many different areas of the world and seeing how other people live and the standards of living or not.
Hello. You have 1 minute to wrap it up. 1 minute.
Anyway, I think.
And then we're going to end with more questions than answers.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Whatever.
Next.
He's a good friend of ours. Okay. Thanks. I don't know what we're supposed to do here. Do we mute ourselves or are you going to do that?
No, keep going, and then we can have one of us to represent what
One thing that Renee was talking about is
Well, it looks like we're having some great conversations at the table, and I know you guys just want to keep going. Unfortunately, we do have limited amount of time here. So we do need you to go ahead and wrap it up. And Chris, are you going to?
He said 1 minute and then he didn't give us any.
yeah.
Okay.
Second.
I know it's hard to get out of these seminars. And at any rate, I really need you guys to wrap it up because I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to engage the tables with questions about what you're discussing. Looks like we have most of the tables on board with us, except for these guys over here. Yeah. Charles Maciate, we need your table to wrap it up. We're going to go to Chris now.
Okay.
So So we're gonna, okay, everybody, we're gonna go to Chris, and then he's going to engage you with what you discussed at your tables. And I'm sure as we did at my table, there's more questions than answers hit the end, but hopefully you made a little progress or learned a few things that you hadn't thought of or whatever the case may be. At any rate, Chris is going to continue the conversation just to kind of see what you guys talked about at your tables. And then we will be wrapping up at 7:30.
Okay, well, first I want to get to this virtual table to make sure that they're included. So who's going to report back? Seth, are you going to tell us what y'all talked about and what kind of answers and questions you might have come up with?
Me? Okay, I'll do my best. I took some notes. So, so first we were talking about the importance of knowing where the information, if the information comes from legitimate sources or not, and then to expose it, right? Like if there's something that there's a right that is being stepped upon or on,
It's not a Zoom.
then that we would need to just like expose it. But then we were talking about that in order for us to realize, well, to protect those amendments, we need to know what they are, and that most people don't. So we were coming up with great ideas, such as, well, they were saying, some of the people in our group that were from Texas, more than two, and they were saying that in public education, they're not teaching history or government. So we were trying to think of ways to do it, and we thought perhaps graphic novels where kids can relate to what those things that are said in the Constitution would look like today, like in their lives with, you know, tablets and iPhones and all of that. But just like, and what would it be like to not have those rights? So Renee was saying that unless you have experienced life without those rights, like in other countries, then you don't know really what it would be like to, you know, what it is like to, or appreciate, I would say, those great rights that the Constitution gives us. So no matter what your, if you are against or, you know, you know, what your disposition, your political disposition or beliefs are, those rights need to be safeguarded. And for that, we need to know them.
So to come out with some sort of engaging way to really instruct young people so they can come to an appreciation of it. Because they're learning, our daughter's learning about the Magna Carta, and these were amendments sprang from those rights that were originally endowed in that.
Yeah, Edward was saying that in Massachusetts they give cards, like little red cards, where they say what those amendments are. That's very Massachusetts-like, right? But you know, anyway, it's just like come up with good ways of making people aware of what their rights are and that they're real and that it happens every day, that they're maybe not safeguarded. And if you have that awareness, then you have your red card to say, hey, what to say if that happens to you and all of that. So and we were also talking about artificial intelligence, and
yeah, that was a big theme in our table too. Can you believe that beautiful person has been my life partner now for over 29 years? Let's give her a hand for putting up with me.
yeah, really.
Thank you so much. Okay, who would like to report back from another table? Who's next? Okay. And do we have a microphone, or do you want the?
don't want it to do weird. Okay, good. So yes, we had a lively discussion on the concrete aspect, like how do we safeguard these rights, right? That was the question. And so it's interesting that you mentioned about Massachusetts having those red cards, because the first thing that occurred to me was in my purse every day, not just because today, like I carry these red cards. And so I passed them out to the table, and we were talking about, you know, on that grassroots level, like, yes, everyone in school should be learning, you know, about civics and about what your rights are and how basic government works. But the fact is that they're not learning that. And so one of our table mates had said, you know, he had a friend in his 30s who thought that each state got one Democrat and one Republican senator. Okay, so adults, right? Across the spectrum are unaware. So these cards talk about what your constitutional rights are. And so that to me was a very concrete way about how to safeguard them, was having them, like you have them in your pocket. I just take a stack and I give them out wherever, like HEB, regular people on the street, whoever. And I think that that is a way to build that education in that's more feasible than through the K-12 system, which we're under TEA and is really challenging. So this is an everyday thing. And then you said a question. You had a question, remember, that you were posing to the group? And you were, yes. Gosh. I wrote it down. But it was, the next step of this conversation. Okay. Well, anyway, it was a really good question, but I didn't write down.
I think about the, I was suggesting also that you could make these for all the rights. Is that what you're, it wasn't that? Okay, never mind then. You could make them though for all the rights. I was saying that would be a fun school project. That would be a fun school project for kids.
That's a good idea.
Just on a personal mission. See, oh, it was about juries.
That was
Yeah, no, we were talking about juries and how, and that it's actually a really important opportunity, but that it's seen as a burden. And what can I do to get out of jury duty? Jury duty is the worst. And so it's not just knowing your constitutional rights, but also knowing that importance and the power that you have. And that culture change around being a juror is a really big deal and really important.
Yes, but let's give them a hand. Thank you so much. All right. So you guys can say something in the context of your table, which I'll talk about.
So anyways, what we talked about is people should be given due process regardless. So the question was, and Yana brought it up, so is due process applicable for phantoms? We don't know who these people, we're talking about the deportations that have been happening. We don't know who these people are, what their names are. It is like stray people who are running away from the law, and they don't want really to be caught and they don't want to face the law. But we're saying that they're on American soil and they should be given certain rights under our Constitution because we're American. So, you know, we want to appear civilized. So, you know, these people should be brought in front of a judge, and at this point, the judge can decide should they stay or not, because they can't even prove who they are. And, you know, with the identities, we don't even know if these are the true identities, and who, nobody has really searched to find out who they are. They could be drug dealers, criminals, or whatever. A lot of them have been found to be. So it is debatable. I don't know. What do you all think? Are they entitled to due process since they're running away from the law and they don't want to be caught and they don't want to see a judge or anybody. So, and the due process, yes, it is in the amendment. Yeah, but we're talking about phantoms. We don't know, they're not people with names. We don't know who they are.
Things that makes me wonder is, were those amendments especially meant to protect those who couldn't immediately identify themselves or their motives? So there was this rigorous procedure that you had to go through rather than giving them the boot and then maybe finding out some other way, which can, over the longer term, be more costly financially, but also to our open society.
We don't hear you unless you have a microphone.
Does it really apply to people who we don't know what their name is? They can say they're Peter or whatever. I mean, we don't know who they are. We don't know their identity or where they come from. Because I came to this country 55 years ago. I escaped from a communist country and I had to go through a camp, and I was interviewed by the consul at the American consulate, and they knew everything about not only me, but my family 3 generations before me. So when I arrived in America, everybody knew who I was. And it took me 8 years to become a citizen. That was the process in those days. So we're talking about people who just can march into, into America and then say, well, I'm here. A lot of them work, a lot of them don't work. So, they fall into this social system or whatever. So there are a lot of unknowns what to do with them under this, amendments that we have. And if we want to really apply the same rule to them, they have to go through the process of being detained and see a judge. And at that point, if they can't identify themselves, then to be expelled.
Well, hang on, I'm going to respond to this real quick. So, Kelly, you need the microphone if you want to talk. I'm going to say something. My microphone to talk for your table and what you're saying right now. My response, just real quick, is due process applies to everybody, and that includes whether you're illegal alien or not, because we don't know whether you're really an illegal alien or how you should be handled until you go through due process. And a judge makes a decision, yeah, we need to throw this guy out of the country, or no, let's let him stay another year, see if he can pull himself together. So it's really up to the court system. That's the whole idea of due process. But Kelly, I'll turn the mic over to you now for your table. Well, you don't want to tell us what you guys talked about? Okay. I don't know if I can let me see if I can get this over there. Okay, who at this table wants to say a few words? Kelly?
We talked about a lot, and I feel like we kind of ended up with more questions than real answers, so I'll try to do our conversation justice. I think we started off by talking, how can you really protect an amendment, and how can you protect something that starts off as an idea and something that is, on paper. It's not like something you can hold. It's not malleable. It's an idea. So how can you really protect that? And then we kind of shifted talking about real world problems, modern problems. And we were talking about when will things change and how can things change? And we started talking about Machiavelli's The Prince, and how he states that things can only really change when violence is put upon it, and violence is inflicted, and it puts pressure on the situation. So we started talking about that, seeing if that's applicable to today, if that will help. And I'm blanking. Um, oh, and we talked about the majority, the tyranny of the majority, and how if just a good enough amount of people, if the majority wants something, even if it's not the right thing, or if there's enough people that want it, even if all those people aren't thinking for themselves, then that's what's going to happen. And the minority doesn't really have a say in that of what's happening in democracy. And that's all I can recall.
Can I be a little bit of a Socratic thorn for just a minute? Just because it's long been assumed that persons applies to persons who are U.S. citizens or not, who happen to be on U.S. soil, just like birthright citizenship is now being challenged, these are not necessarily sacrosanct. And so I've been very intrigued that there have been so many comments about we need to be educated about these things before we can debate about, well, who are we talking about when we talk about persons? Is it etched in there, or is it just an interpretation that a 5-4 majority might overturn at some point? Can you what? No. Okay. Yeah. Are you silencing my voice?
My question's very, very simple. There's something, and there are several people here that know me, one of the most nonviolent people that I know. However, we have the Second Amendment and we're fighting against each other for our rights. When you have the Second Amendment, that is to protect us from the tyranny of the government. At what point do we stop giving away our rights and the people that believe in the Second Amendment stand up for it?
14 conversation with the Constitution. Can I just say that? Right? We've never done the Second Amendment. Or we have, but this is a good spin on it. Okay, thank you so much for that. Who's next? At the table. Yeah, okay. Somebody, please.
Thank you. Well, we discussed what's the means to protecting the amendments, because first, we stated that amendments and the Constitution go beyond ideology, that the most important thing about them is that no matter what you think, right or left, it applies for the people that are in the US. And the question was, how do we protect those amendments? So we first started discussing nonviolent protests and how the power of the people can be shown through those nonviolent protests, and also about awareness. How do we generate awareness about what those mean? And that goes not only with the protests, but with the conversations, with education, with not standing by only. That I would say was the core idea, not standing by. And lastly, we also discussed about how we have the right to talk with our representatives, and that our representatives should look at this beyond ideology, because they represent the whole district, congressional district, or the whole state in the Senate, not only the people that voted for them. So in terms of the legislative power, but also in terms of the executive power, we have that we can generate that conversation about how these amendments go beyond what they stand for ideologically.
Much for that. And you know that raises a lot of questions for how do we go beyond ideology? How do we try again to grasp for that ever elusive objectivity that seems to be in shorter and shorter drift these days? Okay, there was a fascinating conversation at my table. Who wants to?
So we didn't really like answer the question fully, but we were talking first about like what does it mean for the right of the people, because when it was written it was like people as in white men, and since it's 2025 and it's more diverse, so we were asking about what that meant. I hear.
Thanks. So we talked through a few things as far as who the people are, and went through a couple different examples of people being treated differently just because of one thing or another. And that in order to protect this Fourth and Fifth Amendment, we have to understand who those people were that needed to be protected. And for a fair amount of us, I think it is that everyone who's walking on this soil has to be protected. But not everybody that's walking on this soil needs to be taken care of by the government. So that's a piece of what we got. Did I miss anything from what we said? Yeah. So the other piece was we started talking about what the truth is that the government believes and that they're trying to put forward, and that truth is actually their best ideas that help them get to where they want to be and to the people they know to get where they want to be. And that may be the truth for some of them, but not necessarily for a lot of them. From a personal standpoint, I'd like to share with you that at 66 years old, as an American citizen, if I wasn't an American citizen, they would take me away and send me back to my country. I'm 39 years old, clean and sober, and for 13 years, I did some horrible stuff. And they wouldn't let me stay here.
Thank you so much, everybody. I don't know about you, and I know we're not the world's biggest gathering, but I feel a little bit more hopeful after doing something like this. Just because we were able to engage civilly, there were quite some diverse views offered here. And I think that in this process of educating ourselves, we can sort of spill that out into the more greater civic sphere. I want to just thank Elizabeth, Charles, Sassy, and most of all, Paul Martin for making this happen. Thank you so much, everybody.
Liz has something she wants to say.
We can put on real quick the slide, like, I'm sorry, put you on the spot, of all our just people that have supported us. I want to say thank you for Mr. Carter, the Radio Center, who is allowing us to be here. We have Layla in the back. We have World Affairs Council. I mean, a lot of you all supported just by sharing the word. We do have a lot of food. Please go back out there and get seconds. And then we also have to go. So take some to go as well. We have some to go boxes. So make sure that, because we have plenty. So again, if I missed, anybody else, thank you everyone for supporting us. And let's do it again next year. So, oh yes. Yes, spread, yeah, from Layla, she's up, yeah. And Paul.
Well, you did.
Taking care of all the AV, and then he had the gals out there that are also here donating their time as well. So thank you, gals, for being out here.